everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off talking about Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Sega Master System, Sega Game Gear, and MSX emulation with emulicious. Emulicious is 100% free, it's open source, and it just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, this is the first update to emulicious of 2024. We've got a couple of bug fixes and some brand new features. They've added the turbo command line flag to start emulicious with turbo enabled. They've added an option to emulate the EverDrive without an SD card inserted. And they've added an option to crop borders from screenshots. One of the best parts about emulicious is that it's written in Java, so it's pretty much compatible with any system that supports Java. Moving on, and we're talking about MAME, which stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or Multiple Arcade Machine Emulator, depending on how you want to interpret that. And after a couple of months, we got a brand new version of MAME, version 0.262. So they say here in core media support, MAME now supports flat compression for compact cassette images, and Z standard compression in zip archives and CHD disk images. And if you're a chess fan, they say that this is a big release for chess computer emulation. There are lots of newly supported chess computers. And in addition to all of that, there's a whole bunch of bug fixes, a whole bunch of brand new working systems, a bunch of brand new working clones, and even more. There's even prototypes here from the Hidden Palace that have been added to the working software. If you're curious about anything specific, there's a ton of information here, and I'll drop a link to the report in the description below. Feel free to check it out. I mean, there's even Laserdisc stuff here. Next up, we're still talking about MAME, but switching over to Android, and we're talking about MAME for Droid 2024, which also got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, they've updated MAME for Droid 2024 to match the mainline version of MAME, up to version 0.262. And on top of that, they've added two small additional buttons so they can be configured through the input macro plugin for fighting games. Next up, we're talking about Palworld, and Toasted Shoes found himself in a bit of a controversy earlier for two main reasons. The first reason is that he paid someone to create a mod, and then he locked that mod behind a paywall. And it turned out that mod was ripped off of someone else's mod that was free. And the second reason was because Nintendo came after him for blatantly modding Pokemon into Palworld and then charging for it. And it appears that Toasted Shoes has completely redeemed himself. If you head on over to Nexus Mods, you can see a brand new legally distinct Pocket Creatures mod pack, which is basically Pokemon without Pokemon. And he's also released it 100% free. It's no longer behind a paywall. If you are curious about this one, I'll drop a link to the YouTube video and the Nexus Mods page in the description below, and feel free to check them out. Next up, we're talking about one of Sega's rarest systems, the Sega AI computer. This thing was released back in 1986 and has finally been emulated. I'll drop a link to this news article in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. They say today we are making public for the first time all system ROMs extracted from the Sega AI computer, data dumps from 26 my cards and 14 tapes, many scans and photographs, and in collaboration with MAME developers, an early working MAME driver allowing the computer to be emulated. There's a whole story about how they found it, how they emulated it, and the working software titles. Again, check out that link. It's a very interesting story. In my opinion, this is a pretty big win for emulation, game preservation, and knowledge on a very interesting and weird system. And speaking about interesting, there's a brand new video on the PlayStation YouTube page featuring Hideo Kojima. And he's talking about putting out a brand new game in the action espionage genre. Kojima says this game is going to transcend the barriers between video games and movies, and it's going to be a culmination of his 40 years in the video game industry. I am curious about this one. They're going to start working on this one after Death Stranding 2. And speaking about Death Stranding 2, if you're interested in the game at all, Kojima Productions has just released a 10-minute trailer called Death Stranding 2 on the Beach. Next up, we're quickly talking about Nintendo, and if you're a fan of Mario vs. Donkey Kong, or if you've never played it before, Nintendo has just released a free demo for this game containing 4 different levels. Mario vs. Donkey Kong is set to be released on February 16th, and I'm assuming someone already has the demo up and running in Yuzu or Ryujinx. And speaking about sneak peeks, next up we're talking about one of my favorite Linux distributions, Linux Mint. And Linux Mint just gave a sneak peek on Linux Mint version 22. They say that the code name for Linux Mint 22 is going to be Wilma, and apparently it's going to be built on Ubuntu 24.04 LTS, which I think features a Linux 6.8 kernel. And speaking about Linux, next up we're talking about free and open source 2D and 3D cross-platform gaming engine Godot. And Godot just got support for Wayland. The creator of Godot says, "Finally, I'm happy that Godot 4.3 will officially support Wayland. Also, the new display server in Godot 4.0 allows dynamically selecting the backend too." Next up, this is a real quick one. If you're a fan of Dragon's Dogma 2, Capcom just released a brand new trailer for the game. It's about 2 minutes long. I'll drop a link to the trailer in the description below. In the trailer, it says the game is coming out on March 22nd. But on Steam, it's saying the game is coming out on March 21st. I'm not quite sure on what to believe here, but one thing I do know is that it features incredible technologies that everyone loves, like de novo. And speaking about Steam, next up we're talking about Spec Ops: The Line. And if you were interested in this game, if you had it on your wish list, well, you waited a little bit too long. This game was released back in 2012 and has now been delisted. So Steven Totillo says a 2K rep told him that Spec Ops: The Line will no longer be available on online storefronts, as several partnership licenses related to the game are expiring. However, a silver lining here, players who have purchased the game can still download and play the game uninterrupted. Next up, we're talking about Sony, and Sony on Twitter today unveiled this Spider-Man teaser video. A lot of people are trying to figure out exactly what this is. Is this new DLC? Is this a podcast? Is this a new game? Let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below. I'm assuming we're going to find out at the next State of Play. But if you pause it around the 11-second mark, it says Sony presents creator to creator. It appears to be a desk with a bunch of chairs around it. So I'm assuming this is going to be some sort of talk show. Again, let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Next up, we're talking about the Witcher 3 Remake, which is set to release after The Witcher 4, so in quite some time. And it appears the remake is going to be a little bit different than the original. The dev apparently pledges to remove the parts that are simply bad, which may include romance options and even more. And I just realized I called it the Witcher 3 Remake, and I meant to say the Witcher Remake. I'm just used to saying the Witcher 3. Anyways, here, this Witcher Remake was announced back in 2022, so it's been in the works for a while. Next up, we're quickly talking about PDP's newly announced Riffmaster wireless guitar controller. This is coming hot off the heels of Rock Band 4 announcing they're going to be stopping DLC. And apparently this thing is compatible with Rock Band 4 and also Fortnite Festival. This thing has a D-pad on it, a replaceable pick guard, although I don't see anyone using a pick with it. It also has a joystick hidden at the back of the top of the neck, and even more. This thing is compatible with Xbox and PlayStation, and I'm going to assume PC at some point in time. I could be wrong though. It's releasing spring of this year. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.